my 7.0 peeps, it's Sham here, aka Steph. And today what I have for you is, well, I thought I'd switch gears and talk about something of somewhat importance to me. Something that I became familiar with recently because I just found out that someone I know is actually going through this. And it's really sad, and it's too bad that this is happening, and I've tried to help, but I don't know of any other outlets. So I figure, you know what, spread the word. That's the best thing I can do. And what we have going on with this particular person is just a textbook case of this. Today what I want to talk about is domestic violence. So domestic violence, what is domestic violence? Domestic violence is a pattern or behavior which involves violence against another in a domestic situation, such as marriage, dating, cohabitation, any instance whenever there's some sort of relationship. So domestic violence, it can take a number of forms. There's physical, verbal, emotional, economic, religious, and sexual abuse. All of these can range from subtle to extreme. Unfortunately, globally, the sex that is most exposed to domestic violence are predominantly females. Males do experience domestic violence on the other end as well. Domestic violence doesn't just happen in heterosexual relationships, it can happen in homosexual relationships as well. It's not just focused on one particular type of relationship. Some of the signs of abusive tendencies include, but are not limited to, telling the victim that they can never do anything right, showing jealousy of time spent away from the victim with friends or family especially, accusing the victim of cheating, keeping or discouraging the victim from seeing friends or family, embarrassing or shaming the victim with put-downs, controlling every penny spent in the household, taking the victim's money and refusing to pay any expenses for the victim, looking at or acting in a way that scares the victim, controlling who the victim sees, what they do, where they go, always having tabs on the victim, basically dictating how the victim dresses, how they wear their hair, what kind of shoes they're wearing, what kind of outfit they're gonna wear, stalking the victim or monitoring the victim's every move, physically and also on the internet, their phones, etc., and preventing the victim from making their own decisions. Also, making the victim feel like they're a bad person and threatening to take things away from them, threatening to do things to them, basically manipulating them into doing things that they shouldn't have to do. Also, they could intimidate the victim with weapons, guns, knives, etc., force sex with other people, force them to do things they wouldn't normally do, harassing the victim and preventing them from working or even attending school, destroying the victim's property, keeping the victim up all night so they do a bad job at work the next day or in school or whatnot. Everyone has to remember that domestic violence is not always physical at all. Like I mentioned, there are so many different types of domestic violence. I think verbal and emotional definitely take a toll on people, as well as all types of domestic violence, but that's what I think of when I think of domestic violence aside from the physical part. I also feel that there's unfair blame for people like accusing victims as to why they're in an abusive relationship, because when you're not in that type of relationship, you don't really understand what they're going through. So you have to think, why would someone want to stay in a relationship like that? But you have to remember, they want to stay. Bringing an end to the violence is definitely not what's gonna cause the victim to leave. The victim has to safely escape from the abuser. It's not just ending things. They have to cut all ties, like be gone, get rid of the abuser. They have to hold the abuser accountable for everything, because a lot of the times they blame themselves. It's not even close to the victim's fault at all. It's the abuser's fault, but they end up thinking it's them, which is horrible and it's so sad. You have to remember that anybody in life can be abused. It could be a friend, a coworker, a neighbor, anybody. Just never know most of the times. You definitely never know because it is hidden so well. You can tell when someone that you're around a lot and then all of a sudden they start having all these injuries and you ask them why and they make up these crazy stories when you definitely know that something's going on. Like I said, when the relationship gets a little more serious, that's when more of the abuse starts in. That's when the abuse gets worse. That's when the abuser may start making threats, the abuser may put their hands on the victim. All of a sudden that slap turns into a punch, a black eye, a broken rib, slamming door, breaking dishes. People need to remember that if they are being abused, there is help out there. You are not alone. It may seem like you are and that nobody understands, but there are people out there that are there for you, that want nothing better for you than to remain safe and unhurt, untouched. Talking to someone will definitely help make the changes that you need to make. Your first step is to conduct a local advocacy group for support, information, and advice on how to stay safe. You can call the National Domestic Violence Hotline at 1-800-799-SAFE. That's 1-800-799-7233. Here are some things you can do when you're conflicted with an abusive situation. Pointers are: know your legal rights. Consider asking the police for help. Make sure that you know phone numbers in case of an emergency situation, so you have people that you can call ASAP when something horrible goes wrong. Teach your children never to get in the way of a domestic dispute. If you think about leaving, make yourself a plan. Pack a bag, store it away. Tell yourself, I'm gonna get out of here. Don't let the abuser follow you. That's just creating more chaos for yourself. Also, if you think you're gonna leave, do little things like open a savings account that the abuser can't get a hold of. Don't tell anybody. Tell close people and friends that won't get back to the abuser. When you're someone like me and you know that someone close to you is being abused, you need to be a good person to them. You need to let them know that you are there for them no matter what, and that they don't deserve to be beaten in such a way, whether it be mentally, physically, emotionally, verbally, anything. Nobody deserves it, because like I said before, love does not hurt. Let the person know that what is happening to them is against the law, and that's why they don't deserve it, because nobody deserves that type of treatment. And you could suggest that they call the National Domestic Violence Hotline. As I've come across, some victims are just not ready to leave because they think that the abuser has all different sides to them. They think that they're going to revert back to the way they were in the beginning of the relationship, but little do they know that things are just going to get worse. The more that they let the abuser get away with, the worse off they're going to be. You need to help convince them that that is not okay. Victim knows the abuser better than anybody else does and knows what type of harm they're going to be in. So if leaving them isn't the best option, they're not going to leave. You're probably wondering why victims stay. Victims stay for many, many different reasons. People like myself may wonder, why on earth would you want to stay with someone that abuses you? Like, what kind of life are you living when you let that happen to yourself? But you have to tell yourself, you have to put yourself in their shoes and realize there's more than just simply leaving or staying in that type of relationship. For instance, there's something that's going on to make them stay in that relationship, and it is not love. Because love does not hurt. The victim may be afraid that the abuser could hurt their children, hurt friends, hurt family members, or hurt anyone close to them. And most importantly, they probably blame themselves, so they think that they deserve that type of treatment, which, as always, and I've said plenty of times before, that is not the case. Unfortunately, when people fall in love, they fall in love with the person that they met before. I'm sure people don't fall in love with the abuser. They fall in love with that person. The person becomes an abuser and they become the victim. So being the victim, they feel, oh, you know what? I'm going to wait it out. They're not really like, there's a different side to him. There's a different side to her. No, that's not the case. You need to get up, pack your bags, and go. Not only does domestic violence hurt the victims, but it also hurts close people around them. Whether it be your brother, sister, mother, cousin, uncle, neighbor, friend. You are part of that too. It hurts. You need to realize as the victim that you are hurting everyone else around you. That's why people are there for that. Knowing that there's nothing that you can do is the worst feeling ever, especially when someone very close to you is the victim. Like I said before, 85% of domestic violence involves women. Domestic violence is more apt to take place between 6 p.m. and 6 a.m. The costs of domestic violence amount to more than $37 billion per year in law enforcement involvement, legal work, medical and mental health treatment, and lost productivity within companies. It's sad to say, but almost 324,000 women experience domestic violence during pregnancy. Not only that, but domestic violence is the #1 cause of injury to women. And this is on top of car accidents, being mugged, and rapes combined. In 60 to 80% of domestic violence homicides, no matter which partner was killed, male or female, the man physically abused the woman before the murder. 1/2 of all homeless women are fleeing from domestic violence. Every 9 seconds in the US, a woman is beaten or assaulted. 1/4 of women worldwide are victims to domestic violence. Women between the ages of 20 and 24 are more prone to become victims of domestic violence. I want to talk more about Vermont in general. So, 14 Vermont domestic violence organizations served 8,778 women. The organization also fielded over 12,000 hotline phone calls and housed over 1,000 victims. 1 in every 7 women in Vermont will be a victim of rape. Between the years of 1994 and 2010, 50% of all homicides in Vermont were domestic violence related. 1 in 3 women and 1 out of every 4 men are victims of domestic violence. And in Vermont, there are plenty of hotlines to call in different towns of the state of Vermont. Hardwick, Barrie, Burlington, St. Johnsbury, Chelsea, St. Albans, Rutland. There are so many domestic violence programs out there. Again, always feel free to contact anyone from the NCADV, the National Coalition Against Domestic Violence. Those are just some of the facts that I actually found. I did a little research and I found a bunch of facts that I wanted to just kind of regurgitate and let people know out there. And I don't know who's going to watch this, but I just thought, you know, I do my part. There's nothing I can do. I feel so helpless in this situation, knowing that someone I know and someone that I care so deeply about is actually having to experience this. And never in a million years did I ever think that someone like this person would ever be going through what they're going through. The best thing I can do is be there for them, and I back them up 110%. I just want to know that they are safe, they are not being hurt, and that they are happy. I do not want... I just know, since I care for this person a lot, and they're super close to me, I don't know what I would do if anything bad happened to them, especially since I failed to do my part and get the local law enforcement involved, only because it was against their will. I feel like even if I did, that wouldn't do anything, because I've been there plenty of times to help step in, and nothing changes. It goes from that couple will be okay here, but then they peak and things are horrible, and that's where I come in and I say, okay, you need to get out of here, be done. And then when that whole episode is over, they go back down, and it's a continuous cycle, and it's just one that is draining in every sense of the word to me and to everyone else out there that has to sit back and witness. If I were you, don't try to take matters in your own hands. It only makes things worse. That person that's being the victim needs to open up their eyes and realize, you know, it's not what I want. This isn't love. And until they do so, there's not much you can do. I hope this helped, and I hope this opened people's eyes about such a topic. If you have any ideas, suggestions, or if you even want to reach out and tell me a story that involves you or someone close to you, feel free to leave any comments down below. Anything's welcome. And remember, my Sham 7.0 peeps, do your part. Even if it's something so small as spreading the word, believe me, it'll help. This is Sham signing off.